Jaguar, Chapter 13. This is Part 2, starting on page 141. The very top. Flana spoke to Raoul, and he told one of his men to guard the den. We carried the female to the canoes and paddled back to the mining settlement. As we arrived, the word went out, and a stream of people ran down the path to see the Jaguar. Doc wanted to get her right on the boat and put her into the cage we had assembled the night before. But Raoul stopped him and pointed up the path. You made a deal, Flana reminded Doc. I know, but it doesn't make sense. The best thing for the Jaguar is to get her right onto the boat. He looked at Raoul. It was clear that Raoul expected Doc to take the Jaguar up to the town. Doc sighed. We'll have to hurry, he said. She'll be waking up pretty soon. Silver came walking down the dock with his shotgun. He looked at the Jaguar. I saw the cage on deck this morning. He said, I should have known it was something like this. He only knew 1/3 of it. We have to take her up to be weighed, Doc said. He explained the deal and he had made with Raoul, leaving out the part about Raoul coming with us. Silver shook his head. You know, Doc, this isn't a movie, and the men up in town aren't actors. They're very real, and they're not going to be happy about Dr. Dolittle taking their fun away. I know. Well, as long as you know. At least the engine is working, so we can get out of here reasonably quickly. Let's get this over with. You're coming with us? Doc asked. Dead passengers would be very bad for my reputation. Who'll guard the boat? Flana asked. Our friendly little mechanic is still down there. He knows better than to let anyone on board, and I haven't paid him yet, which should keep him on our side for the time being. We walked up the path with a parade of people behind us. There was a huge crowd waiting inside the store, spilling out into the street. We had to push our way through the entrance and up to the weight scale. Behind the scale was a long blackboard with names and numbers. Hanging on a hook above the board was a 3-gallon bucket filled with money. The store owner came over and looked at the Jaguar. He jumped backwards. He just discovered that your Jaguar is still alive, Silver said, grinning. He seems to be enjoying himself. The owner started shouting at Raoul. He's not pleased about losing out on the skin, Silver interpreted, and he's blaming Raoul because he led you to the Jaguar. Bad day in Mudville. Go ahead and put her on the scale and let's get out of here. Doc and I put her on the scale, and the owner moved the counterweights to balance the arms. He took his time about it, nudging the smallest weight on the arm little by little. The room got very quiet. Most of the men stared intently at the scales, hoping their number would come up. Fred Stoat stared at Flana with his toothless mouth hanging open. The owner was finally satisfied with the weight and wrote it down on a piece of paper. He announced the weight in Portuguese, then turned to the board and ran his finger down the list of names and numbers, stopping at 72 kilos. Raoul, the owner said quietly. Fred Stoats tore up his mark and threw it on the floor in disgust. He leaned over and hissed in my ear, You should have taken me upriver. You're going to regret it now. He stamped out of the store. You better get your Jaguar out of here, Doc, Silver said. I have a feeling that things are about to get very ugly. No wonder Raoul had insisted we take the Jaguar up to be weighed. He was more interested in money than we had thought. Doc and I rolled the Jaguar onto the stretcher. Raoul stepped forward and gave the store owner his mark, then held out his hand for the bucket. The owner took the bucket down, but hesitated in handing it over to him. Silver said something to the owner. I don't know what it was, but men immediately got as far away from Silver as they could. The owner's face turned bright red. Do you have the cat? Silver asked, without taking his eyes off the owner. Flana and I picked the stretcher up. We're all going to leave together, Silver said. You and your pet first, then me and your friend Raoul with his bucket of money. He said something to the owner and punctuate it by pumping a shell into the chamber of a shotgun. The owner very reluctantly handed the bucket to Raoul. The party's over. Let's move out. I backed out the door with the stretcher. Doc was behind me, clearing the way. When we got outside, I turned around so I could see where I was going. We walked over to the path and started down. Doc, Silver yelled, why don't you run ahead and get the marooning ropes untied? As soon as they gather their wits, they'll be coming down. I'd like to be gone when they get here. There. Doc ran ahead of us. I glanced behind. Silver was walking backward down the trail. Raoul walked next to him with his bucket. A group of men were following, but they kept their distance. The Jaguar lifted her head for a second, then put it back down. She was coming out of the drug. Then, when we got down to the dock, we started moving faster. By the time we got to the boat, Doc had the lines untied. We got the Jaguar aboard. Silver scrambled up to the wheelhouse, ignoring the mechanic's complaints about getting his money. The engine came to life, and we started backing out. When we got far enough away from the dock, Silver swung the bow and started upriver at a pretty good clip. We put the Jaguar in the cage. After a while, Silver came down from the wheelhouse and to take a look at our new passenger. The Jaguar snarled at him. She doesn't look very grateful, Doc. Doc looked up at him. Thanks for your help, Silver. All part of the service, Silver grinned. To tell you the truth, I sort of enjoyed it, but let's not do it again. We'll drop Raoul and the mechanic off upriver. Raoul is going to have to stay out of town, but he'll be able to go anywhere he wants with the money he won. He's coming with us, Doc said. Silver stopped, grinning. Why? He wants to see the Jaguar set free. Also, he happens to be the best cat tracker I've ever seen. I need him. Doc, Indians are the most unreliable people on earth. He won't stick around. He'll just take off one day without a word. They always do. I thought about Silver's wife, Alicia, and his son, Tito. He can leave whenever he wants, Doc said. So now I have an Indian and Jaguar to worry about? What's next? 3 Jaguars, I said. Doc told him about the 2 cubs. When he finished, it started to rain. Silver looked up at the sky. I should change the boat's name to Silver's Ark. He walked back up to the wheelhouse. He took that better than I expected, Doc said. The Jaguar cubs were much bigger than Doc and I had predicted. They put up quite a fight as I used a nose pull to pull them out of the den. I was surprised to see that one of them was black and one was spotted. Black Jaguars aren't that unusual, Doc said. The black fur is called melanism. It's just a color phase. If the sun hits the fur just right, you can still see the outlines of spots. We paddled back to the boat and handed the crates up to Silver and Flana. When we got back on board, he helped the mechanic into one of the canoes. Raoul then took his bucket of money and lowered it over to one side of the men and said something to them. Silver looked very surprised. Raoul told his friend to give the money to the people in the Indian camp, Flana explained. I wouldn't have bet on that, Silver said. He said something to Raoul in Portuguese, then went back up to the wheelhouse. Flana smiled. Our captain just told Raoul that he was welcome on his boat any time. I guess there's hope for this expedition yet, Doc said. Let's get a cage put together for the cubs. Why don't we put them in with their mother? Flana asked. It would be too crowded. They're ready to be weaned anyway. We assembled another cage and set it right next to the female's cage so the cubs could at least see their mother. Our biggest problem is going to be feeding them, Doc said. Their favorite food is the peccary and capybara, but they'll eat just about anything they can catch. Turtles, deer, monkeys, sloths, snakes, lizard, caiman, birds, opossum, fish, and even snails and insects. Perhaps Raoul is a good hunter as he is as good a hunter as he is a tracker, Flana said. Let's hope so. That night, Doc's mood was still upbeat. He had 3 Jaguars, and he hadn't even gotten to the preserve yet. Flana removed his bandage. I think the burns are finally starting to heal, she told him. There'll be some small scars, but I think they'll go away with time. I stood up suddenly, startling both Doc and Flana. Did something bite you? Doc asked. No, just feeling restless. I think I'll go up and talk to Silver for a while. In all the excitement, I had forgotten to tell Silver about the man with the scar. I climbed the stairs to the wheelhouse as he was standing at the helm with Scarlet perched on his shoulder. What's up? He, too, seemed pretty cheerful. I forgot to tell you that I thought I saw the man with the scar in town yesterday. At least I think it was him. He was standing near the trail, looking at the Tito through binoculars. Silver didn't say anything for a few moments. Facial scars are almost as common as ears in this country, and it's very unlikely that the same guy would be way up here. Maybe he followed us. He already went through the boat. Why would he follow us? Forget about it, Jake. What about him watching us through binoculars? I'm sure someone in town checks out every new boat that comes in. It's not the same guy. I didn't push the issue any further, but there was definite change in Silver's mood. The cheerfulness of a few seconds ago was gone. Is there anything else? He asked, staring out the window. I guess not, I said, and left him alone. When I got back to my hammock, there was something sitting on my pillow. It was wrapped in a green leaf. What's this? I don't know, Doc said. Raoul put it there. I looked over at Raoul. He was watching the jaguars. I opened the leaf. Inside was a large, yellowed canine tooth. It had a small hole drilled in one end of it. I showed it to Doc. Jaguar, Doc said. I looked back at Raoul. He was watching me and said something to Flana. He says it's to make you strong. I smiled at him. He nodded and turned back to the jaguars. I took off my snake amulet, ran the leather thong through the tooth, then put it on. I went over to Raoul and showed him the tooth around my neck. He nodded with approval. I pulled out my pocket knife and gave it to him. He tried to give it back, but I folded his rough, copper-colored fingers around the knife and shook my head. That night, Silver didn't let the anchors down. When Doc asked him why, Silver said he wanted to push upriver to make up for lost time.